We know you will be interested in the next part, which presents a report on the progress of the preaching activity in Nigeria during the past 1 year. With the coronavirus and epidemic, the lockdown, no house-to-house preaching, meetings at Kingdom Halls, we've gone through a lot. Well, this talk will be presented by Brother David Nwagu, who serves on our branch committee. Brother Nwagu, you have our attention.
It was the year 455 BCE. The Jews who just returned from exile in Babylon were desirous of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, but the hostile attitude of the surrounding nations was discouraging to them. As we read Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 18, notice what Nehemiah told them in order to encourage, strengthen, and invigorate them to get up and rebuild those walls. Let's read Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 18. Then I, that's Nehemiah, told them of how the good hand of my God was upon me. Yes, Nehemiah narrated stories about him experiencing Jehovah's good hands in his life. What was the result? The latter part says, at hearing Nehemiah's personal experience with Jehovah, the Jews said, let us get up and build. So they strengthened themselves for the good work. Like the Jews, the COVID-19 pandemic has been discouraging. It has been distressing. We are tired. You think about the lockdown of Kingdom Halls. You think about the suspension of house-to-house preaching. We're no longer able to shake our brothers and hug them. You think about changing to Zoom and learning how to use it. It has been distressing and discouraging. We're going to narrate some experiences of how, just like Nehemiah, Jehovah's good hands have been upon faithful servants despite the pandemic. You think about the experience of Brother John Ogamba, a member of the Nigerian Bethel family. At the beginning part of the pandemic, he lost his father. While grieving the death of his father, his non-witness relatives demanded that Brother Ogamba must come in person and officially inform them about the death of their brother. But Ogamba was disturbed because he understood that some of the practices involved will affect his conscience. He started praying. Members of the Bethel family also prayed with and for him. Friends, the good hands of Jehovah came upon Brother Ogamba. All of a sudden, those hostile, non-witness relatives changed automatically. They are no longer demanding that he should come. And when Brother Ogamba made a personal decision for safety reasons not to be present during his father's funeral, those relatives understood and supported him. Did Brother Ogamba feel Jehovah's good hands? Yes. In the following video interview, notice specific expressions from members of the Bethel family as to how Jehovah has used his good hands to comfort, empower, and strengthen them despite the pandemic. Please watch.
For me and my wife to maintain our joy, we now spend more time with our families and friends. For example, once every month, we have a monthly Zoom call with our parents, siblings, and some of our aunts and cousins. And occasionally, one of them would join us on our studies. Also, once every month, we have a special pioneer couple and a second overseer couple to join our family worship. So these are special moments that we look forward to, and they leave us with precious memories to think about. So true, Bethel is locked down, but not our hearts. By opening our hearts wide, Jehovah has filled us with joy.
For my wife and I, learning new things during this lockdown has brought us so much joy. For example, before the lockdown, we do not really know how to sing so many of our songs from the heart in Yoruba language. But then during this lockdown, we decided to learn and memorize the lyrics of the songs in Yoruba language every week. We take a song from the Sing Out Joyfully, and then the week that follows, we take another song from one of the original songs. And this has really brought us so much joy. Right now, we can sing some of this song in Yoruba language. Draw us closer together as a couple, and most importantly, draw us closer to Jehovah God.
As for me, this period of the lockdown has really afforded me the opportunity to pay more attention to Jehovah's creations. When I see this wonderful creation of Jehovah, I observe them more closely. I get to see the animals, the plants, the flowers, even the skies. And all of these really make me appreciate Jehovah more. It makes me appreciate the gift of life that He has given to me. It also reminds me of things I have known before and help me to reflect more on Jehovah's qualities. And each time I see these things, it's really pleasurable. I enjoy watching them and it gives me a lot of joy.
Well, for my wife and I, we have derived more joy during this lockdown because we have been able to spend more time in our family worship and reading the scriptures. We also go deep into the publications of the faithful and street slave. As a couple, as a family, we have used that time now to benefit ourselves both spiritually and physically.
Those are few of many expressions of Jehovah's good hands on members of the Bethel family. How about our construction family? These faithful, wonderful, hard-working brothers and sisters also felt the effect of the pandemic. From moving from one construction project to another to sheltering in places. That affected them. But did Jehovah's good hands come upon them? Once again, I say yes. Because while they were sheltering in places, all of a sudden, World Headquarters released several training programs that were prepared without the COVID-19 pandemic in mind. But here is a perfect situation. The brothers and sisters are not engaged in projects, so they have the time. And so all of these construction servants now engage themselves in thousands of man-hours of training. They had training in contract management, real estate, quality assurance, oversight, safety, and on and on. Brothers, I can assure you that the moment the pandemic is over, we will have for ourselves a group of well-trained construction servants who are ready to tackle our construction needs. Once again, I ask, did Jehovah's good hand come upon these faithful brothers and sisters? Yes. Our special pioneers and secular ourselves also experience Jehovah's good hands. Yes, they have to make adjustments in their preaching methods from house to using telephones and letter writing. But Jehovah's good hands came upon them. A special pioneer couple reported that they are able to average 170 hours in a month. In fact, in an experience sent by this special pioneer couple, they had a woman, a Bible student. The husband allowed her to study with Jehovah's Witnesses only after 10 p.m. What do you think they did? Jehovah's good hands empowered and strengthened this special pioneer couple that Bible study is progressive. How about our circuit overseers? These hard-working, faithful brothers are also experiencing Jehovah's good hands despite the adjustments they have to make. From moving from one congregation to another to sitting just at a place to conduct meetings, give talks, and preach. Jehovah's good hands have been on our traveling overseers, that these ones, as a result of their hard work within this period of the pandemic, we are happy to report that more than 50 new congregations have been formed. Yes, Jehovah's good hands have been on our family of special full-time servants. How about our field ministry? in our individual ways, we're also experiencing Jehovah's good hands on our ministry. Take, for example, the experience of Sister Toyin. Sister Toyin decided to send text messages and scriptures to all non-witnesses who are on her phone contact. And one of these non-witnesses happened to be a pastor. Month after month, Sister Toyin would send text messages, but the pastor never responded. So one day, Sister Toyin decided to call the pastor just to find out, did you get my text messages? You know what the pastor's response was? He said, I received them all, and I am studying them, and I am enjoying them. God bless you for your efforts. And as at the time this report from Sister Toyin came to the branch office, that pastor is a regular Bible student. How about Melody, a 13-year-old regular pioneer who had a Bible study with a neighbor before the pandemic? But when the pandemic came up, the issue of physical distancing came up too. How is Melody going to deal with this problem and still continue with the study? You know what Melody did? His room is next to the neighbor's kitchen. So Melody will go into his room. The neighbor will go into the kitchen. And they can speak and hear each other. So the study, despite the pandemic, despite physical distancing, continued for Melody. Once again, I ask, did Melody feel the effect of Jehovah's good hand in his ministry? Absolutely yes. We all have felt the effect of Jehovah's good hands. During the past service year, more than 6,382 got baptized as a symbol of their dedication to Jehovah. Now, these baptisms are not at Assembly Hall baptism pools. It was at your bathtubs, drums, streams, and rivers, and swimming pools. But yes, despite the pandemic, Jehovah's good hands were upon these baptized ones. This year, the memorial attendance was 698,762. These ones attended not at kingdom halls, not at rented facilities, but they all connected through Zoom. Once again, I ask, has Jehovah's good hands been upon us despite the pandemic? Yes. Now, we don't know what tomorrow holds, but as we step into the next 100 years of our theocratic history, but as I can assure you, times will get difficult. Yes, there will be trials and problems. But brothers, if we remain vigorous and zealous in the preaching work, if we allow Jehovah to continue to strengthen us with his good hands for all eternity, despite challenges, we will remain faithful like Nehemiah.
Thank you so much, Brother Nwagu, for that encouraging report. You'll be glad to know that the governing body has approved for a special exhibition entitled 100 Years of Courage in our visitor center here at Bethel. It will be left open for an extended period of time. You can come and visit when we are allowed to have visitors again and enjoy this. But would you like to have a virtual tour of this exhibition now? Watch and enjoy.
Welcome to this special event at Bethel. It is the opening of the museum for the centenary of the 100 years of kingdom activities of Jehovah's Witnesses in Nigeria. This exhibition, entitled 100 Years of Courage, includes pictures, recordings, and many other historical items. May Jehovah bless this arrangement.
Well, we certainly look forward to welcoming you in person when conditions permit. Truly, the kingdom work has come a very long way in Nigeria. For the past 100 years, brothers and sisters, young and old, have gone through fiery tests of faith. They have been molded into a strong theocratic organization, and they have maintained courage. How can we do the same? How can we maintain courage right into the new world? Well, pay attention to the final talk of this special meeting. Brother Nelson Degele, a member of the branch committee, will answer these questions in his final talk, Maintain Courage into the New World.
We thank our God Jehovah today as we rejoice in remembering lovers of Bible truth who started it all in this country, who blessed their feet with the mud, with the dust, as they walked the streets, the roads, the bush paths of this country, bringing the good news of something better to its inhabitants. 100 years old. Sadly, though, in all that 100 years, never had God's servants had to live and serve Him in times of crisis as we live today. The prophet of Jehovah, Daniel, chapter 12, verse 1, calls our time a time of distress, such as has not occurred until now. Who would disagree? We live in times of growing emotional, physical, and mental distress. Truly speaking, these times are harder than hard on Jehovah's servants and humanity as a whole. We are brutalized today by man-made disasters, natural disasters. We are constantly confronted by flooding, by food shortages, by criminal activities, terrorism, kidnappings, insecurity, tribal and ethnic conflicts, just to mention a few of the dilemmas coming upon mankind. And as if that is not enough, add to it the growing cases of pestilences, such as the currently rampaging COVID-19 pandemic, the prevalence of cancer and other illnesses. And we are not talking about the now endemic breakups in family life as a result of a breakdown in the quality of families. Truly, a time of crisis. Who has not had to deal with pains, with agony, with tears, leading us sometimes to re-echo those words of King David of old when he wrote, "The distresses of my heart have multiplied." Psalm 25, verse 17. What was going on in the life of David at this time? Well, Saul, powerful King Saul, was after his life. Kidnappers took his wives. In his ranks, among his men, there was betrayal. David had to fight many enemies, some of them grotesque in nature. The Bible reports of one of those enemies as having 12 fingers and 12 toes. Under such circumstances, what would David do? What did David do? David set us a wonderful example of courageously and with strength confronting all the difficulties that confront us. And in so doing, he found joy, and so would exert all of us, as we find at Psalm number 31, verse 24. Be courageous, and may your heart be strong, all you who are waiting for Jehovah. What exhortation for us. As we face, like David, the lion himself, Satan the devil, today. And as we get closer and closer to the great tribulation, living as we do, under stress, in a city under siege. David was part of a people who were not strangers to difficulties and sufferings. His forefathers had traveled some 40 years trekking through a fear-inspiring wilderness. But in 1473 BCE, they found themselves before history. A nation of slaves was marching into what was called the Promised Land. Now, face to face, as it were, with the Promised Land, what would their leader, Moses, who was departing, going a separate path into death, but just before he goes there, what would he kindly and selflessly say to this nation? Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6. Be courageous and strong, he told them. Joshua was going to take up the mantle of leadership from Moses and was going to carry this nation through the remaining difficulties. There was the overflooded River Jordan and the Canaanite nations known for war to be confronted and fought against. What would Moses say to Joshua? Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 7. Be courageous and strong, standing as we do today, just before history. Brothers, these are the most historical times since Adam and Eve fell into sin. We are part of a generation that stands right in front of the new world waiting to cross over. With difficulties still ahead of us, confronting us even today, what would Moses say to us? Be courageous and strong. And no doubt the nation of Israel needed courage and strength as we do today. Going a little back in time before the nation of Israel, let's talk about another set of servants of Jehovah who themselves were no strangers to distresses and difficulties. The Bible book of Genesis describes a couple, Abraham and Sarah. But let's go take the story of this beautiful couple in that chapter of the Bible that I am sure you will want your name to be in. Hebrews chapter 11, the roll calls of honor. All the names there were names that confronted times, hard times, with courage, with faith, with strength. And there we find this couple in verses 8 and 9. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 and 9. There, the inspired account reads, by faith, when he was called by faith, Abraham, when he was called obeyed by going out to a place he was to receive as an inheritance. He went out, although not knowing where he was going. By faith, he lived as a foreigner in the land of the promise as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him in the very same promise. The life of a foreigner, of a wanderer, is not an easy one. Living in tents couldn't have been a very easy life. The Bible narrative of Abraham and Sarah reports of famines, quarrels with the relatives. Remember the herders of Abraham and those of Lot. Dangers from surrounding nations, childlessness in their marriage, to mention a few. Now, what sustained Abraham and Sarah in all of this? We read Hebrews chapter 11, verse 10. Abraham and Sarah were awaiting the city having real foundations, whose designer and builder is God. With the thought of this city in mind, with faith in Jehovah, with hope that is strong, they forged on. And all you dear couples who have left all that could be, who have left city life, who have left pursuits of all kinds, who have left careers and have moved to serve where the need for kingdom publishers is great. We thank you because you remind us of Abraham and Sarah, because you keep the spirit of this fine couple alive so that Jehovah can look down on earth today and still see Abraham and Sarah in you. We thank you. All those of you who are childless couples but who would love to curdle children of your own, but you keep on faithfully waiting on Jehovah, you remind us of Abraham and Sarah. Be sure that your God Jehovah will treat you in a special way. Now we come thousands of years later into the future from that time. At about the time Jesus Christ died and resurrected and back to heaven, we are introduced to a young lawyer, Paul. Paul would later become a Christian, a servant of Jehovah. Who had it all made for him? Oh no. Some 20 years or so after Jesus died, as he was writing under inspiration a second letter to his brothers in Corinth, in chapter 11, verses 23 to 27, he lists some 23 different difficulties he confronted. Paul would say that he found himself in dangers in the city, in dangers in the wilderness. He had moments of hunger and thirst. He had times when clothing was not sufficient. And then he goes on to talk about times of extreme pressure beyond his own strength, uncertain even of his life at times. Yet, in all this difficulty that confronted this man of God, what was uppermost on his mind? Why don't we let his writings speak? Please turn to that 2 Corinthians chapter 11. We've spoken about verses 23 to 27, which you can find time to meditate on. But in verse 28, he says, besides these things, the lack of food, lack of clothing, and dangers everywhere, beside all those, there is what rushes in on me from day to day. The anxiety for all the congregations. What a beautiful thought. And so, this nice apostle of Jesus Christ, Paul, reminds us of you, dear brothers, elders, and ministerial servants, who have your difficulties in life, who have confronted the lion itself. And yet, besides all your issues, besides family difficulties, besides your economic concerns, besides sometimes even health difficulties, you continue to pour yourselves into the spiritual activities of your brothers. When they cry, you cry. When they call, you pick it up. You listen to them. You talk to them. You keep Paul alive on earth, and we thank you. Jehovah knows you and will repay. Think about this. 100 years ago, before the very first witnesses stepped on the shores of Nigeria, we were without God in the world. There was not even as many as one Nigerian who was calling on the God of Jacob, the true God, in true worship. Can you reflect on that for a little bit? Does it not take our hearts to that situation Paul describes to the Ephesians at Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12? You were without God in the world, and without God, what hopelessness. Would we even be alive today? Yet we thank Jehovah that he did not allow that situation to continue that way, but that he raised up his servants who brought the truth, the comforting word of theocracy, which is a healing to the heart. And our broken pieces started coming back together as we got to know the God who promises good things. So that today we have over 400,000 publishers from nothing only 100 years ago. We really have reasons to introspect, brothers. Think about it. What if Brother Brown had chosen not to come to Nigeria? What if he had chosen to pursue a career in his homeland? What if Brother Namibo and many of those old faithful ones who started it all back then, what if they had rejected the message? What if they had accepted it though, but put it as secondary in their lives while they pursued careers and goals of a personal nature? Would we have been where we are today? Where would we have been? But again, we thank them that they did not. And we thank Jehovah that he stimulated their hearts so that they did not. And look at how many of us have been helped to become reconciled to God as a result of the sacrifices that we celebrate today, which those earlier ones, our spiritual forefathers and grandmothers, what they did. And yet, brothers, has the door of becoming reconciled to Jehovah been closed? Jehovah has kindly kept it open. And it begs the question of you and I, what will you do with this beautiful legacy of those earlier ones? There are estimated 200 million precious lives out there in Nigeria. Would we, with the same zeal, go into the ministry, even though our lives are not perfect, to help to the extent we can, so that the opportunity that Jehovah still has open for those who will with us enter into the new word can completely be filled up by letting more millions of this country come in to taste and see that Jehovah is truly good, just as we have done. These people started something of a relay race. And now, in that analogy of a relay race, what happens at a relay? Well, a group of people are staggered away from each other, but they are one team, and they run for a common prize, group prize. Now, the first one has a certain distance he or she must run, holding a baton in hand. And usually those first runners, they pour everything into it to cover the grounds for those who will run after them. And as they finish their lap of the race, they hand on the baton to others who hand on the baton to yet others who hand on the baton. Friends, over the past 100 years, faithful relay runners have covered a lot of ground in this country. And they handed the baton to those who handed the baton to others, to those who handed the baton today to you and I. Again, the question continues to beg for answer. What will you and I do with this baton of courage, of faith, of strength in hand? Many of you, dear brothers and sisters, listening to this talk today, I am one of them. We had faithful, loyal, godly parents teach us the truth. Perhaps even from infancy, as they put little spoonfuls of water into our mouth, they put even the more precious waters of truth into us. And by so doing, they were passing on the baton of courage, of worship to the only true God, of faith in Him unto us. And as they ran the race, they completed their lap. And like Moses, they rested, waited, and now may be considered part of the crowd urging us on. What will you do with this baton given by precious, faithful parents? When they wake up to take on their lot in life in the new word, what do you think will be most precious to them? What do you think they would go after first? Do you think that they would, after recognizing they've been resurrected and thanking Jehovah about it, do you think they would wonder where there is a massive home built by us, the children to whom they handed the baton to run for the kingdom? Or do you think they will be looking for us? Where are my children? And can you imagine their disappointment if we failed to make it into the new word? If we failed to run with that baton with the same zeal with which they ran? If we failed to cross the finish line. Here is something else that will be important to them. As they see us and hug us in joy, they would want to know, what of their grandchildren? So parents, now, your faithful parents would like to see your children in the new word. Are you training these children with that ability to run and run into the crossing line and cross it? Or do you think it will please our parents when they come back in resurrection and we tell them, sorry, Papa, sorry, Mama, my children could not make it. But I tried my best. I gave them the best education. I left impressive bank accounts for them. Do you think that they will feel that we use the baton and run as they would have wished? What will you do? What will I do with the legacy that we celebrate today? How do we face the next 100 years with this baton in hand? That is the life that we have been handed unto today. Yes, brothers, we will not spoil this race. Instead, we will run with unmitigated zeal, looking at no distractions on the left or on the right, just hurtling and darting like a javelin across the finish line into God's new word. We have many who, some of them are alive today, and we salute them, older ones, wrinkles in face, but beautiful in Jehovah's sight. And many have fallen asleep in death, who ran with courage, and those of them alive still running. I am sure you would like to see a portrait, a video of only a representative face of them. We cannot possibly gather all the beautiful, wonderful faces of these ones, but these will represent as you watch on this video.
Dove aponna
What a beautiful portrait of faith they collectively become. And what encouragement for us to run with a baton of courage into the new world. We do have every reason to maintain our courage now and into the new world. Christian servants of Jehovah have been trekking for decades. There are some of you out there who have done so. Satan and his word are bent on spoiling that race, our own imperfections, the imperfections of others. We have materialism, worldly philosophies, immorality of various kinds. They all loom large, threatening to stop us from seeing the promised land, just as the Canaanite nations wanted to fight the Israelites out of the promised land. But would we allow that to happen? Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5 tells us that we would never be left alone. There, Paul quoted Moses as saying of Jehovah, I will never leave you, and I will never abandon you. So as we wait even the attack of a coalition of nations, the Gog of Magog, we know that this prophecy will be real. We know that Jehovah will be there for us. So then, dear brothers and sisters whom we love, you loyal parents, faithful children, precious Bible students, continue to strengthen yourself in Jehovah. Continue to build that faith that energizes your courageous race across the finish line. As we walk, as we run to courageously please our God Jehovah, we can be sure that Jehovah will prove real. Very soon, dear friends, we will have the wonderful privilege of realizing that Armageddon is now behind us and that we have survived. And we may take account of our family and see that each member of the family, our father, our mother, our son, our daughter, our brother, our sister, as a family, we have courageously crossed into the new world. What a joy! We continue to pray in your behalf and in behalf of ourselves. May we have that honor of maintaining courage into the new world with everlasting life in view.
Thank you, Brother O'Gelly, for that motivating talk. Your talk and this entire program has truly strengthened our faith and our courage to prepare for whatever comes in the future. How thankful we are to Jehovah for this rich program that we have enjoyed. The entire program is proof of Jehovah's blessing on our activities here, so we rejoice in Jehovah's loving care, and we're moved to do as much as we can in Jehovah's service. So on behalf of the branch committee, all the hard-working members in Bethel, we thank you for all you do in connection with true worship. We love you, and we wish you Jehovah's blessing. Well, let's conclude now by singing a song that expresses how great our privilege is to be named Jehovah's Witnesses. Please join in singing Song 29, Living Up to Our Name, and after the close of the meeting, you can say your own prayer. Song 29.